Oh my God. All right. Hi, Sarah. We're just waiting for people to join. I can go ahead and get, I know a couple people have said that they're coming late. Anyway, so they'll just miss the exciting beginning. And I'm recording, so everyone, Ellie, put on clothes. Thanks for coming, you guys. I was excited about the virtual tour this year because in the past, as a photographer, printing and framing your work is so expensive, and it's been a little limiting as far as participating in the studio tour in the past, plus being a single mom and the double weekend commitment. That was the main reason. So the virtual tour is kind of fun. I didn't know, I don't know how many people are going through the website, but it's fun to participate this way. And I'm excited to be here. So I thought I would do a Zoom, and make it more fun and interactive this way. So thanks for being here. And Andre, my friend Andre, we met in Austin, but she used to be an agent for art and commerce. I'll let her talk about that. But she used to represent fine artists and commercial artists in New York City. So now I consider her my unofficial agent, even though she switched careers and lives in Austin now. So she's just going to introduce me for fun.
And help moderate. Hi, everybody. So I was in New York for 14 years. And as Cathlin mentioned, I represented photographers for an agency called Art and Commerce. We represented people like Annie Leibovitz and Stephen Meisel. My job there was to really help the artists navigate the very sort of tenuous place between commercial and fine art photography. So helping them understand how they could be fine art artists and also make a living doing things commercially, which can be challenging. One of the things that I did at the agency that I loved the most was head up something called our Emerging Artists Festival that we held each year. It was an open call. Anyone around the country could send in their portfolio. I think at the peak, we got in about 300 portfolios, and 40 artists were selected from that number to be in the show. And then of those 40, about 10 were selected to be mentored by us for the next year, help refine their portfolios and introduce them to people that might be able to help further their careers. So I had some friends in Austin that knew I had done that, and they said, oh, there's this photographer that you should meet, Cathlin McCullough, and would you do that? And so I said, sure. And my initial thought, I had very low expectations because, as I said, we would see 300 portfolios and whittle it down to 40. That's not a very high percentage. But I immediately was taken by Cathlin when I first met her, just in the way that she talked about her work and her kind of vision for her place in the market. And then as we looked at the work, I was just blown away and felt like there was something really special there, very unique to anything else that was in the photography landscape at the time. The thing that I love the most is the very raw emotion that she conveys and how she captures light and shadow to kind of further pull the viewer into that emotional space. The other thing that I feel really strongly about that Cathlin does is how she portrays women in such an empowering way that is really capturing their sexuality and vulnerability in an authentic way that is so unique to each person that she photographs, and then therefore unique to just women. We're all so complicated and so layered, and I feel like she does a really beautiful job of capturing that when she photographs each of her subjects. And I think lately, especially, that's been one of the things that has appealed to me the most. And I think you really see that in the Tender Things series, which I know you're going to show a good bit of, Cathlin, I believe.
I'm not going to show it unless people ask for it today, but it is on the Austin Studio Tour website and on my website. Right. So it's what I'm showing as part of the tour.
I think it's interesting to think about sexuality and vulnerability in a less overt way, and you do that so beautifully, and that's one of the things I like about that series. So I'm going to try to help moderate a little bit if any of y'all have questions. I know some people send in questions via Instagram and email, so I don't know if you want to just start with one, Cathlin, and then we can kind of see where the conversation goes.
That sounds good. Does anybody have a question to start? They can just ask it. If not, I will just go in and start with the questions. No, okay. So I'm going to start with this quote that you've probably all heard, and then I'll tell you why I'm talking about it. But it's Martha Graham, and she says, there is only one of you in all of time. This expression is unique, and if you block it, it will never exist. The world will not have it. It is not your business to determine how good it is, nor how valuable, nor how it compares with other expressions. It is your business to keep it yours, clearly and directly, and to keep the channel open. So a couple of years ago, I gave a talk about creative voice, and I did all this research about creative voice at the time, just to kind of see what other people had to say about it. And the interesting thing I found, and this gets to a question that people have about what inspires me and how I make work that I love. I found throughout time, so even in the Bhagavad Gita, if I'm saying that right, through today, Elizabeth Gilbert, everyone's heard of her book, Big Magic, to this quote by Martha Graham. But in all sorts of places, I found the same kind of ideas, and it was so fascinating to me to find it, way back in time. And the idea is that we each have this unique, if we're all unique, which we all know, we each have this unique position and this unique expression, and it's not entirely ours, as Elizabeth Gilbert says. And so my ego wants to say it's all me, and I'm just really unique and fabulous and really good at this, but it's not. What I am good at is following the spark or the idea or anything that any idea, or sorry, I have a new puppy that my son's supposed to be watching. There you go, everybody. The puppy cam. Henry, come get the puppy, please. This is real life as an artist. Anyway, so I follow this in how I make work, in that one of my number one things that I do is, if I'm inspired by something, please take the puppy and put the gate up, thanks. If I'm inspired by something, I don't question it. I feel like I have a duty to follow it through. So that, people were asking me how I find my models. Well, some of my models are models, or part-time models or kind of models, and some of them are people that I've seen on the street. And I feel like it's, if I'm attracted to them in some way and I don't have to understand why or what work I'm going to make with them, I have made a commitment that I'm going to go up and ask them if they want to work with me. And so far, every single person has said yes. And sometimes it's been intimidating. Asking children, like asking parents if you can photograph their kids, can be a little of a tricky space, but it helps that I'm a mom. It helps that I've been with my kids when I ask them. And the main thing here that I guess that works for me is to not understand it. So I often start my work before I understand it. And I think about this quote, I think about, it's not my job, I'm a channel. And so I move forward before I understand a lot, but I have to trust the process, trust the inspiration, and follow it. And sometimes, you know, sometimes it's just practice. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes I just, you know, I make something hoping, is this going to be a series? Is this going to be great? And it's not, it's just work for that day. But I've tried something, and usually in the process, I've learned something or it leads me somewhere else. Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions about that?
I was just going to jump in and say, having been on set with you, but behind you as you shoot and in front of the camera as well, I feel like you are so great at intuiting where the shoot should go. And that's very clear in the connection that you have with your subjects, and kind of furthers what I was talking about in capturing someone's authenticity. I think you do that so brilliantly, and you always go into it with a vision of kind of what you want, but it's very fluid, and you honor the subject, which I think is really beautiful.
Thanks. That is another question that somebody had. They asked if I go in on my personal shoots with a whole mood board and a whole shot list, and I don't. I go in to varying degrees with an idea. So for Tender Things, I was mostly inspired by Sofia Coppola's Virgin Suicides. So a movie, and the feeling, it's a feeling. It wasn't, I'm going to copy images or stills from that movie. It was a feeling, and it was a time, like in all my work, I'm really inspired by vintage everything and anything. So that movie has a vintage quality, and kind of, was it the 80s or 70s? I forget when it was set, but the feeling in that movie was my jumping off point, along with this field of poppies that I had known about in Austin. I'd actually taken my kids there and photographed them when they were little, very unsuccessfully. Like the photos were really bad. The kids didn't want to have their photos taken. And this is another example, is I don't stop, right? I don't stop there. I tried once and I didn't like the result, but I felt a connection to this field of poppies and I followed it through. So I don't even think on that Tender Things, like I didn't go in having an idea that this is going to be a series, that I'm going to call it Tender Things. I had no idea of any of that. I just knew I was drawn to something for going on 2 years. I needed to make work there. I found a model on Instagram, I believe, and I thought she would be right for the space. And then from there, I often style my own personal shoots, and they're not about fashion, but to me, because color is so important, primarily it starts with the color. And then again, sometimes vintage pieces will make me more excited. So I found these Sears bloomers, like size 13, 14 bloomers that had never been worn, or they were dead stock, I'm not sure, but I was really inspired by them. And they didn't go with the poppies from a color perspective to me. I wasn't sure. So I show up with a bag of different things. Like I brought those sheer socks. I don't even know how I got that idea. but I have a few clothing items. I always talk to the model about my vision beforehand, and I have them bring some pieces. A lot of times I have them text me things that they own. But if I have time and I don't have a lot of time, I will go to a vintage store and just look around and see if something feels connected to the feeling I want to create. So when I got there, I noticed these purple and blue flowers that I had never noticed before. And they weren't, they weren't even the primary. In my head, I was thinking poppies. I'm going to take pictures in these poppies. And when I got there, and to Andre's point, I'm really open. Like, I like going where the wind takes me on a shoot and what inspires me. And I'm a very intuitive photographer. So I kind of enter the space where I shut everything out and I follow my intuition and my inspiration. So I saw these new flowers, and I thought of these bloomers that had the same colors. And I said, let's start there. And I got inspired by something new. So, and then with the model in front of the camera, my favorite photos are the ones where I sure, I can direct a model and I get people started, but I like the expressions that they make in real life when they're not modeling. And so I watch very closely in the in-between moments, and I watch them and just look for something that's unique or interesting about them. And then I ask them to do it again. So a lot of times I'm just watching them and I say, hey, I saw you just do this thing with your face. Can you do that again? Or this pose, or you moved your hand back here. And to me, that's where the magic happens. I think that's why my work doesn't look like a lot of other commercially styled shoots with models, because it's organic in that way. And then for Tender Things, once I get the images back, I'm not sure at what point I realized like even the phrase Tender Things or what it was about. But because I followed my intuition, when I get the images back, I saw a theme there that was coming through that hadn't even really necessarily presented itself to me from the beginning. And that was just the skin. I think maybe I had an idea beforehand of I want to get skin and shadows, because I do love shadows. Shadows are one of my creative elements. I think before I mastered light, I was attracted to shadows. So most photographers love light, and I do, but I love shadows just as much. So maybe that was my idea going in, is hopefully I can get some shadows on some skin. And that might have been it. I don't want to ramble in answering one. This ramble answers a number of questions, actually. Does anybody have any questions on that? I'll just take a pause.
I have a question.
Okay, who is it?
It's Erin. Okay, so you talked about sometimes not fully understanding where things are going to go, or having that set plan and that set idea going into a shoot, kind of basing things more on your intuition and things like that. So how have you learned to trust that? Because I feel like a lot of people would want or feel the need, like, I need to have this set plan. I need to know exactly what I'm trying to get out of this photo shoot. So how have you learned to trust that intuition, and I guess kind of let go and know that, I mean, maybe it won't, happen or work. But yeah, like, how have you learned to kind of just not have so much control or a set plan going into some of your shoots?
That's a great question. And let me caveat it by saying that for commercial shoots or product shoots, like my recent jewelry shoot with McKinley, I like to have a shot list because we've got a distinct set of time and I know she needs a certain number of images and she wants a close up and a far, and I want all the products listed just to help keep me on track. So it's not that I never do something like that. And especially for product, you have to. Otherwise, I go into my intuitive space during a shoot and I'll forget. So I want to have that list. However, and it's tricky on commercial shoots because I want to have enough time to be able to play a little bit and to watch, and I think about my goal, which would be to have these big commercial clients, but I often wonder how my technique would work with like 20 people on set behind me. And I wonder about that because I like, to me, there is a magic that happens when I connect and drop in and connect to the person in front of me, and there's quiet there. I have to be patient. I can't have people like chattering in my ears saying, get this, get that. So I wonder about, like, someday my dream is to be able to get hired by a brand that I would really love, like Gucci or Jill Sander or something. And I'd be able to dictate what my set looks like, right? I could say how many people I work with, who gets to talk to me, who doesn't. I will become a diva, but only so that I can work the way I want to work. That would be the dream. I don't think that's the reality most of the time. But to your question, Erin, I don't know if everyone knows this, but I was not a photographer for most of my life. I did, teach myself film photography when I lived in Japan after college and just taught myself the basics, photographed street photography, and then I put my camera down when I got back. And then when I'd go on vacation, I'd take photos and then I'd put it down. And it wasn't until coincidentally, it started beforehand, but it really picked up when I was going through my divorce. And I realized that in my marriage, I had not listened to my intuition, and that was a big part that was missing for me. And so as I learned, and I really got into photography and poured myself into photography, and this is only like 5 years ago, it was my outlet and my practice for that. And so I decided that at some point, having a mentor or someone validate you at some point is really beneficial. So early on, I happened to take a workshop with Jan Palmer, and she validated me enough, like I was just starting, like a year out, validated me enough. And I looked around and I just decided, yeah, like what I have to say and what I'm doing is important or unique and important to me. I guess that's the point. Like I do this ultimately for me. And before my whole life, I actually spent feeling like something was missing, that I knew I wasn't in the right career, for example. I knew something was missing and I couldn't place my finger on it. And I kept thinking, like, in college when I was an art major, I thought you had to be like this fabulous, ingenue, like this artist prodigy that my teacher would have pointed out and said, oh my God, you're such a good painter. Then I thought I could be an artist. Or the old me thought I needed an MFA to ever call myself an artist, because that's kind of where my head is. And I just threw that all out the window and I did it all for me. And I found my best recommendation for people is to pick up any random camera, like a film point and shoot, and just practice by taking photos of what inspires you without thinking too much about it. And just keep following that. And it's like a muscle, it's a muscle that I practice as much as I can. It's also about realizing when, we're bombarded with information all the time, not only photos on the internet, right? I follow way too many photographers on Instagram, and I worry about how that might muddy my own vision and my own work. And sometimes I might want to, in the beginning, I was taking a couple workshops here and there, but right now I really feel like I'm in a season of listening to myself and trusting myself and letting that marinate and see what happens. But if I were taking like a class all the time and a workshop all the time, and I was only ever taking in, how do you have an opportunity to put out? So I kind of think of this as a time to see what I can do on my own without other people. Because even a mentor, everyone influences you. So even somebody saying, like I remember early on, Yan said, what you do with light and shadow, or who knows what she said, but something along those lines. And I remember thinking, like checking myself and saying, is she right? Is that what I'm shooting naturally on my own? Or am I shooting that now because this person I admire said that's what I'm good at, So I even stopped and checked myself there. But I do think it's really important to tune out other people and not always be consuming, whether that's classes or workshops or whatever. For me, the other main thing, Erin, is I realize that as an introvert, I need a lot of alone time, and my creativity needs alone time. So I also think that it's not a coincidence that, as a mom of young kids, I had a hard time making time for myself, but the divorce forced that on me, right? I didn't have my kids every other weekend. And so in that way, I'm lucky. Like I need, and now I would protect it with my life. Like I need alone time in order to create my best work. And I recognize that. That's super important because too much stimulus and too many voices just muddy up what's going on in my own head. I can ramble with the best of them.
You're not rambling.
No, but I think that was a great explanation.
I just take a few detours along the way. Any other questions on this topic while we're on it? We'll go to another question. I partially answered it, and that's an easy one, is how I find my models. So my best advice, one, is if you see someone that you're interested in photographing, ask them. It helps to carry your card, but if you don't, I just show them, I walk up to them with my Instagram at the ready so that they automatically, like I can put it in their face and they can look and they can see, oh, this is a legitimate person. And then I give them my info, but I also get their info so that I can reach out to them in an email with a link to my website, a link to my Instagram. I'm not waiting for them to get in touch with me. And then regarding my models, Austin's obviously not a hotbed for models, but I follow other photographers in Austin or other people. And if I see someone interesting or see a model that's worked with another photographer, I reach out all the time and say, hey, I'd love to collaborate, want to work together sometime. And I'll say, I don't have, I might say I have some brands that I work with that might need someone in the future. Do you want to do a test shoot? Or right now I'm working on that personal project for COVID. and I want people for that. So I just reached out to someone, a male model actually, and I said, I know they want something too, right? New models need photos, right? So it's not like you're just taking, you're giving them something. So I want people for this series. So I say, hey, would you like, are you in Austin right now? Would you like to work together? They say yes. And I always say, well, what do you need? Like, because I really do like collaborating. So some models are really into like coming up with a fun idea with me. Some aren't. This guy said he said, I like what you do, like your face work. Like he's been in a lot of, I guess, maybe editorial, and he wants some interesting photos of his face. And I say, great, I will do that for you. And I send him a link to this COVID series, which is different, and asking someone to be behind plastic. I say, would you do that too? And he says, sure, and not all models, but models are, I don't want to say flaky, but the stereotype can be true. So I have to follow up. And this is also for free. So I'm very aware that jobs come up for them. And that's the other thing, is like, you just want to be considerate that they do get something, like you give them the photos. So think of it that way, but they're also doing you a favor. So I just like to be considerate, and often they cancel at the last minute, they change their mind. And I just keep that line of communication open. Like I had 2 models back out a couple weeks ago, and I am going to follow up with both of them, and for different reasons. Like one just wasn't feeling good, and the other one ended up not being in Austin. But I just stay on their radar by just reaching out in Instagram. And for models, Instagram works well. Like if you were reaching out to a brand, I have found Instagram does not work well. You want to email, but that was one of the questions I got. Ellie, did I answer your question? Is Ellie still on?
I'm here. Yeah.
Okay. You asked a good question. I want to make sure I answered it.
Yeah, you were talking about how you were inspired. I have a question now, though, about so it sounds like you're really focused. And what happens, or does it happen ever, that you get really focused on an idea and you're working through it, and then halfway through, or even when it's done, it's not what you wanted it to be? Like, how do you handle that? And do you change the project in order to be satisfied, or is there that folder of broken dreams?
Ellie is a phenomenal artist that does public. Do you say you're not a street artist? Because that means like graffiti, right? You're a public works artist, or what is your title, Ellie?
I'm a public artist. Yeah.
Okay. So I like I said, I say that I will follow through on whatever my idea is. So I have a lot of ideas that often are not good or they just don't go anywhere. But so the thing I said I would talk about at the end, I will. But the number one thing that helps me keep creating work so far that I love is my creative contract with myself. And it's got 8 items on it. And one of the items, and the most important maybe, is that if I have an idea and I'm inspired by something, I have to try it and do it and not question it and not make sense of it. Because in the beginning, it might sound stupid, or it might not even sound like something I even understand. So this plastic thing I started doing, I did not set out saying, I want to make a series about COVID. It was about getting this idea with the plastic and deciding to follow through with it. And I got plexiglass, and I photographed some people behind plexiglass, and I got plastic, and I really liked how the plexiglass was looking. And then suddenly it fell flat, Ellie. Like suddenly I was like, well, I can't take this any farther. Like I just felt I wasn't inspired by it even anymore at the plexiglass, even though I really like how it looks. I like the work that I've made so far with it. But all of a sudden I felt like, oh, I thought this was like really cool. And suddenly it's not giving me anything, but the plastic was giving me something. So I started out trying both. And so, so far the plastic is still interesting to me. And I will say that because I'm such an intuitive shooter, that what appeals to me a lot is often not appealing to other people. Like I like chance. I like variable, like my favorite light is mixed light, and lots of people are uncomfortable photographing in it. And the reason I like it is because it keeps me on my toes. The plastic is moving on a windy day. It's like suffocating a baby. And, you know, like yeah, like, so things that actually are, what's the right word? Unpredictable are actually like, I need to kind of have a sense that I'm playing in order to keep doing something. And then light is super important to me. And so I know what time I'm just setting this up in my front yard, and the time keeps changing because of the, you know, daylight savings and the sun, but I know the light that I want. But the plastic's actually providing this kind of moving element, because it's unique for me to have people stand in one place or sit in one place. Like that's actually really challenging for me. I like to play and move and walk around, and but I think so far the plastic's keeping it interesting. And the other thing, Ellie, that is happening with this series is, so I thought, oh, is this about COVID? I think it's about COVID. And maybe I had an idea that it would work, like when I was attracted to that, or came up with the idea, I thought that would work for thinking about COVID. And it does work, and people are responding to it really well. But I'm having this other voice that's saying, is this really about COVID? I don't know, girl. I don't think so. That's the voice I'm having. So like to me, you know, something I care about a lot is the environment, and our like Tender Things is about that, our place in the environment. And I'm wondering if this series is better suited for that. I don't know. And I took a risk in publishing it before I fully knew what it was about or why I was doing it, if it was going to turn into anything. But maybe I'll change it later, you know. And then I do a lot of things, and I'm lucky to have my children as occasional reluctant subjects. They used to do it more, but they don't do it as much now. So if something's kind of inspiring to me, I can try it out with them and then see how it looks. Like, you know, like there's these trees in front of Taco Deli on Lamar that I had been wanting to photograph someone, and I made Henry stand in there. And I was like, oh, that didn't work. Something's not right. And then when a friend was visiting, I made her stand in there, took her photos in there. It's like, nope, there's nothing there. it's not working for me. So I know that burnout is real, and losing, you know, I worry about when I quit my job 2 years ago, I worried that, and I still worry, like mixing this thing that I love that gives me so much with the pressure of making money, would I still what would I be sacrificing, or what would that take away from my work? But so far, I don't think it has. And I think the main reason is because I'm constantly doing personal work. And so if the work's not coming to me, I'm coming up with ideas. And I think there's a lot of pressure to have like a big idea in advance. Like, I'm really jealous of the people who have the big idea and then they go shoot it. And I decided, well, you don't have it. Just turn your things into the big idea later. So instead, my best advice is be inspired by the location, or, I mean, I'm just talking from me, a color, a location, light, a person, and then trust yourself enough to go make some work there and then see what happens.
Cathlin, I have a question for you.
Okay.
One of my favorite photographs that you've done is the couple. It's in your book. It's the couple in the gold bedroom.
Oh, yeah.
So my question is, are those models? Are those the people that own the bedroom?
That's my mom, and I did not give her that question. So thanks for asking a question, Mom. No, so that's another interesting thing that helps, is that's actually an official engagement shoot. They hired me to photograph them for their engagement. And I'm a little bit tenacious in that we were talking about locations, and I'm just not a flowy dress and a field photographer, which is what I see a lot of engagement shoots. And it's just like the light's beautiful at sunset. It's just not me, and I can't explain it why it's not me, but it's just, I know it's not me. It looks like everyone else, and it's boring to me a little bit. So I kept, she brought up some outdoor locations, and I don't know what I said, but maybe I mentioned something like, I wish we had a blank, like a vintage something, or I made some comment by being persistent, like, let's keep brainstorming. And she mentioned that her fiance's, it was her grandmother had just died, and that was her grandmother's home, and her family was going to either sell it or someone was going to move into it, but no one was using it right now. Oh, I know. She had just been there the weekend before, and she sent me a text, and she goes, well, this is kind of crazy, but look at this cool bathroom. And I was like, oh my God, where is that? We have to photograph there. So I kind of turned an engagement shoot into a personal shoot too by doing this. And then I still took the photos at sunset with their dog, walking through like Texas hill country grass. And they love those photos probably more than they love the ones that I took. And selfishly, I don't always do this in all of my paid portrait shoots, but I try to, someone once told me, one for thee, one for me. So if I'm taking a photo for you, I'm going to take one for me too. And I don't always do that. And not everyone inspires me. So it would be exhausting to try to do that all the time with people that, they just want a Christmas card photo. They're not really going to bring it for me that day. I'm not going to maybe push myself on them. But people who really love my work for what I do, and they want to see what I can do for them, then they're willing to take the extra time, right? Because I have to be mindful of their time too. So that was her grandmother's fabulous bedroom. And I think some of the family members were not so happy later on that we did that there, like they thought we were being disrespectful or something, but it's too bad because I love that photograph.
I would venture to say that I think, just in my own experience and from talking to people in the past, that as time passes and they go back and look at the images, the things that you shoot for yourself that feel a little bit uncomfortable for them maybe end up being the ones that resonate, that they love later. Anyone can have a pretty picture in grass at sunset, but what you give them on the flip side is something so unique that I think people look back and are really appreciative that you pushed them.
I hope so. I think they were happy with it. I think, truth be told, she said, "Oh my God." I think she had a breast showing in an image on my website. It's up on my website under personal work, the series. And I thought she was okay with it. And I guess she didn't know I had put it up there. And one of her family members went to my website and was like, "Oh my God, what kind of photos were you?" She was in a bathtub because they had this sunken 70s bathtub that was so amazing. And we had a bubble bath going. So mostly nothing was showing, but a little nipple slipped out or something. And one of her older family members was like, "What kind of photo shoot were you disrespecting mom's house? And what were you doing?" So I had to take that photo down, sadly. But the client herself, I loved the photos, and I think you're right. I think they'll be glad to have them there. I noticed there are a couple questions in chat. Let me open that up. Okay, Ellie's asking me what my ideal space to show my work or favorite place I've shown your work. So
you might want to jump to the next question though, because it's related to what we were just talking about, and then come back to that one.
All right, why don't I do that? Sorry, I'm trying to figure there it is. All right, from Janelle, what does it look like to you to market to both the Christmas card client and the ones who will let you go crazy? So I struggle with that, Janelle, because, I shoot fine art photography. I do too much, as people would say. Like everyone, marketing experts say narrow, narrow, narrow. Well, right now, I feel maybe a little too scared and hesitant to narrow. One, because I need money, and two, because I like photographing people so much that I actually really love photographing families when they get me and want me to do my thing, right? And I love photographing the weddings that I've done. I've only done a handful, but it's usually people who see my work, my other work, and say, "We love you. We love what you do. Just do you at our wedding." So what I did this year is look at my family clients, and I realized that none of them were booking my full sessions, which are more expensive. They were all booking, once a year I would do short sessions, and I know it's just for people who want Christmas card photos. And every year I would do it, and I'd try to make them fun. Like last year I made a backdrop, or put up a backdrop outside, shot film, and they were fine. But I realized that my clients, one, are not getting my best work. I don't do my best work in a 20-minute time frame where people just want posed photos, because they show up wanting a posed photo. So they show up and they stand there in front of the backdrop and they smile and they yell at their kids to get, they just show up with the mindset that's completely different than what I want. And then I don't get to play. And I have to have enough time to play a little bit to create my best work. And so I have to have clients who are willing to spend that time with me. And so this year I decided I was not going to do those short sessions anymore. And I sent an email to my family clients and I said, I started off listing my values, like a lot's gone on in the year. Like I listed out Black Lives Matter. This is a value. Like I wanted to list my business values out for people, and I want to let them, I realized no one knew where I stood as a business, and that was important. So I did that. And then I said, one of my other values is that I want to support my family with my photography, and so I'm not going to do these short sessions and you're not getting my best work. And that was a risk because I've booked fewer sessions, but there are people who did book are booking the full sessions. So I might lose a little money this year at it, or I might break even. But I really do see that my best work doesn't happen in those Christmas card sessions. And so if that's all people want, I also have to be willing to let it go, right? Maybe I'm not the Christmas card photographer. I have to, I'm trying to pressure myself to let some things go, because I see that in order to have time to do the things I really, really want to do, I can't keep doing everything. And so another example is I've been doing some interiors work. Andre's an interior designer now, and I just went and did some interiors photography for her friend. And I realized that I was going to have someone else do most of the editing for that, because I don't, if it's not my main focus, which is really my personal work, and then wanting to do more editorial, more brands, and more commercial work, just because commercial work will pay me to keep doing this and pay me to do, be able to be a fine artist, that I needed to free up time. So I was willing to let the editing go on that. And so I'm trying to get better about being brave enough, which is scary as a single mom who needs to make money, but saying no, right? And I say, I have to think, like saying no over here frees me up to say yes over here down the road, but it's super scary. Okay, Ellie's question was about where the best place, I'm trying to summarize and I'm going to do a bad job, so I'm just going to read it. My ideal space to show my work, or the favorite place I've shown my work. So I have only recently realized, and this is now the 8th thing on my creative contract, it wasn't there to begin with. Like, I was making all the work, thinking I was doing a great job, believing in myself, doing all the things. And then I was sitting back and going, okay, where are all the people? Like, why? And I realized, oh, I have to market myself. I have to put myself out there. I have to get my work in front of the right people to have the kind of shows that I want. So my work is definitely best. My work, my photos, and not everyone's photos are like this, but my photography does not do well on Instagram, on a tiny square. I like to fill the frame. There's a lot going on. And so when I actually cried when I saw Tender Things. A client had 4 of the Tender Things series printed out really large for their home. And when I went to pick it up from the printer and sign it, I literally cried. And I thought, how is it that I never see my own work printed? This is how it should be viewed. And I decided then, and I still haven't done it, that I need to print out all, like even small proofs, but of all my work, all my favorite work of my portfolio. And my book that I made was a start. That's definitely helped, but print is where my work belongs. I would love to have a solo show in the future. That's a goal of mine. I have never done that. I've participated in a couple group shows. My mom and I went to one when I was one of the Critical Mass Top 50. We went to Santa Fe and saw my work in a group show. A lot of the group shows I don't get to go to though, because one was in Barcelona. But my goal is to print my stuff large. I like it large, and I want to see it in galleries, and I want to have a solo show. So you can help me figure that out, Ellie.
Can I jump in for a second?
Yeah.
I was just going to read something, that client that Cathlin mentioned, who purchased the 4 images from Tender Things and had them printed quite large. She shared a little quote for us for this event that I think is beautiful and maybe ties into Anella's question that's coming up. She wrote, "A connection of the heart is immediately felt when first experiencing Cathlin's work. She's able to call upon a warm and aspirational place that we all carry within ourselves, a place where feelings are still fluid and ripe with hope. The narratives she explores as an artist also carry through into her commercial work and elevate the seemingly mundane into romantic objects of joy and beauty." Wonderful client to have, who can see your work that way and also articulate that so beautifully.
I know.
She's an artist herself, so she lives in that space and really understands. And I think that's also a huge compliment to have an established artist support your endeavors.
Yeah, she was so nice to do that too when I reached out and said, "Hey, would you mind talking about why you purchased these 4 pieces or what they mean to you?" And that's what she wrote. So I was super humble.
So Anella asked, what do you do during family sessions to stay in the intuitive creative space?
So, Anella, I know that you play a lot because I saw your reel with your prism and your rainbow. So playing is one of my big ones too. And so to me, to be an intuitive means to listen and follow, right? So I am super observant. So before I ever got into photography, I was always watching. I'm more quiet and I love watching people. So that's one thing, is watch and follow, be willing to follow, and not have I might have an idea, but I am very willing to scrap it and go for the other thing if I see it and it's good in front of me. So being flexible is another one. And then having clients and I was thinking about how maybe I don't do a good enough job of talking about the value of what my sessions are, but kind of thinking about them as making art together and being willing to play. Like this last family session I had, they were a new client. They found me on Facebook, which is crazy because I don't promote on Facebook at all, never on there. And she was a difficult client leading up to the session, and that they changed the date and time like at least 3 or 4 times. And then she asked for a makeup artist, and the makeup artist came and texted me and said, the dad was kind of rude. Like, she just set up the set. So going into the session, which was yesterday, I was not feeling that inspired and not that hopeful, because I got the sense like the mom had made all these plans and the dad kept shooting them down. And then the makeup artist said the dad was kind of rude when I was there doing makeup, which most of my families don't have makeup. This is like the first time, but somebody wanted a makeup artist. And I just kept saying to myself, okay, I got to go there giving them what I would give everyone else and not expecting him to be what this idea of him is in my mind. And then I positioned it that we're going to keep moving and we're going to go to different places, because they had little kids, like a 18-month-old and a boy who was turning 4. I said they need to move a lot, so we need to keep moving, and we're going to go over there so he can do that. And so I kind of positioned it like we were doing these things for the benefit of them and their kids, because it does benefit the kids, but it was also for me because I could see the family needed time to warm up. The kids needed to feel comfortable, and also the kids, you know, every family photographer does that, but they let the kids need a break in the middle of photos, a long photo shoot, right? So they also were smart and brought a soccer ball for the boy. And then I broke out some of my things like a prism, Anella, I know you do that, just to see if it sparks something for me, right? So, and I also have to know that all of my sessions are not going to feed me. They're not going to be my best work. And so I have to look for the openings to play, and look for the openings. Anytime I see my favorite light, that would be one, is, and I'm not joking when I say light is often my entryway into this, is I will say, oh, we got to go over there. Or, you know, I just insist on it because I know that I love photographing in there, and I make some of my best work in my favorite light. So why not do it? But a lot of these shoots don't have my favorite light, or if it's cloudy. And that's something I am working on too, is because light and shadow are so important to me. What do I do when it's cloudy and boring to me, right? Like, so I'll throw in movement. I do always go into every shoot with one, and I think I've told you that before, Nella, one thing. Like today I'm going to work on movement, slow shutter speed. I know that I can get really good images that make me feel, feel something if I use slow shutter speed sometimes. So on a cloudy day, I'll often plan to do that, or plan to use something like a prop, something else that brings color. Like, since color is so important to me, if I can't count on light, how can I bring color into this? But it is a challenge, and it doesn't happen in every shoot. But I try. I don't know if I answered that beyond what you're doing already.
Thank you. That was great.
Okay. Let's see. Sarah asked, have you found it beneficial to have two separate websites, one that focuses on your commercial fine art editorial? Yes. So I have two websites. One is the one I originally started out with that I used to have everything on. And right now it's cathlinmccullough.com, and it focuses on my personal work, which is my fine art work. And then I'm kind of spinning it to include editorial and commercial. I've heard that you shouldn't even have editorial and commercial on there. It should just be fine art. Ellie can probably attest to that, but fine art people are snobs and they don't want to see that stuff. But I've separated it out on there. And for now, the thought of having three websites just sounds horrible. So I'm going to keep it on there for now, down to two. And absolutely, yes, you can't have wedding work and family work on the same site as you have fine artwork, or they don't take you seriously, as crappy as that is. They just don't. And so, and the work is different. I know that I can make some fabulous family photos for my clients that my clients love. It doesn't mean that I love them. Like, a great family photo to a lot of clients is everyone is happy, everyone's standing in open shade and they're smiling or they're looking at the camera. To me, those photos are great for the family, and I recognize that, but they don't contain any of the elements that I know what my creative elements are that make my work mine. And I think knowing that for yourself is really important, and it can change, but my signature light is one of them. The feeling is one of them, and I can talk about that in a little bit. some sort of energy or tension is one of them. And so all my best work contains multiple of those creative elements to make it mine. My family work does not always create all of those, or wedding work. That's not my job at a wedding. My best wedding image will, and occasionally you'll see me throw a family photo or a wedding or an engagement or something up on my regular Instagram. And that's why I have 2 Instagrams too. But I recognize that when you're doing it for a client, you are giving your at least half your job is to give them what they're there for. Now, I do my best to promote myself and only show the work that I feel like represents me. So they're not hiring me to make work that looks like everyone else's. But to me, it's been good to have them separated. And I've also been told that you have to. So I have scheduled this for an hour and a half. We have about 18 more minutes. And does anybody else have any questions? At the end, I want to make sure I talk about my creative contract, which I promised I would talk about. Not that everyone's dying to know, but does anybody else have any questions? You're welcome, Sarah. Who's going to say something? Okay. I have a contract with myself. I just call it my creative contract. I've already talked about and so I do believe that this is the number one thing that keeps me making work that I love and that I'm proud of, and even just keeps me making work and not burning out. So I'll go through them. There's 8 items I've already talked about, and I have, when I've given this as a presentation, I go into each one in depth. But the first one is be curious, right? So I think every photographer is curious, or was at some point, and that sounds so simple, but I have to stay interested in other things and other people. And so if I'm finding that I'm bored at home or bored with my life or bored and I've been doing the same things over and over, then I know it's time to go to an art museum, go take a road trip, go talk to new people. Curiosity is maybe where this all started for me. Number 2, prioritize. So this is, and you should see the things I have listed out, but in order to go after photography, while I had a full-time job and was a single parent, I really had to prioritize photography. And the main way I did that was be willing to give up other things. So, you can't say you don't have enough time for personal shoots. If I, when I had a full-time job and was doing photography on the side and was a single parent, I made the time for personal shoots. So if I can do it, you can too. But that did mean, and I don't recommend this, that I gave up things maybe I shouldn't have, like exercise for a while. But I did give up having a clean house. Like there were nights where I literally looked around my house and I realized, and I used to work, when I was working full time, I only could work at night after my kids went to bed. And I'd look around and I'd say, this house is messy, I need to clean it. But if I do that, I will be tired and I'll go to bed and I won't have time for my photography. And I'm just going to have to give up this idea of what my house should look like. I also had to give up the idea of what, like, being a parent, I don't know. I literally I had to give up fancy trips. I quit my job. I have given up buying new clothes. I think about all this stuff all the time. Like, what am I willing to give up for the choice of, and it's not just photography, it's my new lifestyle. It's being home more with my kids. It's not having to work in corporate America. It's having a flexible schedule, but I am willing, like I want it so bad that I'm willing to give up a bunch of stuff for it. Number 3, put myself in front of creativity. So I know that music is a huge inspiration for me. So I do prioritize going to concerts, for example, even though maybe logically I could say I can't afford it. Or taking road trips. Like I know or going to vintage stores, certain things really spark my creativity. So I'm responsible for doing those things to make sure I stay creative. Play, I've already talked about. So other examples of that, I'll rent a lens. Like the last time I went camping with my kids in June in Arkansas, I rented a lens, a tilt shift, because I knew that, will I really be that excited about taking photos of the 20th time we've gone camping? Not really that many times, but I knew that if I rented a lens that kind of distorts things, it would be so much fun, and I would shoot 20 times more than I would have otherwise. This one is huge, follow through. I'm not always the best at following through. I'm great at ideas, but this goes back to, if I have the idea, I have to follow through. I think maybe everyone has great ideas, but do they follow through? Do they say, doesn't matter if it makes sense, doesn't matter if you know where this is going, just do it. And I stick to that. And then trust the process. That's part of it. It might not make sense to me, but I just trust that it's going to work out or show me something, or maybe I'll learn something along the way. Commit and do the work. So again, a lot of this, like if you think about writers, right? It's all a practice. So I have to commit to doing the work. And the last one that I added that Ellie's question got to, that I realized was missing, that I only added last year, was get your work in front of the right people. That's my job. I wouldn't it be nice if they all landed in my lap and found me and said, we want to offer you a solo gallery show. And hi, I'm what's his name from Gucci, Alessandro, whatever. I want to hire you. But my work, it's my job to get it in front of the right people. This one might be the hardest for me. I have a hard time talking about myself and my work. That's why this was such a good idea, because it's making me practice. And that's the one that I am picking up the slack on. So I think everybody could have a creative contract and it would look different for each of you, but it's really been the thing that's helped me the most. Number three was put myself in the way of creativity. So I have it and I can send it to you later, but I have all these examples in my presentation, but creativity things, it's more like what sparks creativity for me. So the example is concerts or movies. I'm really inspired by movies, cinema, Moonlight is one of my favorite movies, and that inspired my photography a lot. Like I said, Virgin Suicide. So, we all have such limited amount of time and resources, but I'm intentionally putting mine in places that I know will help my photography, even if they're not directly related to photography. Even water skiing. I just spent a bunch of money to go water skiing, which I did growing up and which I love. I love it so much. And I kept thinking I needed to make friends with a boat here. That never happened. I needed to date someone who owned a boat. That never happened. Henry's looking at me all scandalous now, but So I finally started somebody to take me out water skiing, and logical me says you can't afford this. It lights me up so much. It brings me into myself. I realized it's part of my identity. I really did it my whole life. And the way I make feel, parting thought would be, that I didn't really talk about, is all my work is about feeling. Like, I grew up having a lot of feelings, and maybe I felt too big for people, like too many feelings, too much emotion. And now I have a place that communicates it, that I realize connects me to people, that I'm not the only one who has this. So I need to tap into those feelings that I'm trying to express. And so doing the things that that helps me experience those feelings is part of it. And that's what number 3 is about. All right, well, I don't see any more questions in the chat. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you so much for.
Anybody have any final?
Oh, I was just going to say thank you for sharing everything with us. It was super interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah, and I do really love talking a bit and learning about other people's processes. So I'd love to hear from you of what you guys do. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cathlin.
Thanks, Cathlin.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
By the way. Bye.
Hi.
Cute. Well, thanks. All right. Day. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you, Cathlin. Love you.
Love you.